Okay, guys, so today in this video, I'm going to show you guys the step-by-step process of how I created this face here with the scar and all of that jazz so that you can create your own for the wizard project. Yours will be different than mine. Change it up, add your own features. I'm going to go through the tools here that you're going to need in a second, but I forgot to mention in that part of the clip that you need your slip. Obviously, that's always a given, but it is very important to mention that you will need your slip. I also add a rib tool to the list of tools that you will need. I didn't wind up needing it for this particular face, but sometimes you do. So it depends on what you are creating. Stop, ask questions, pause, rewind wherever you need. There will be time lapses in here that speed through some of the longer portions where I'm not giving instruction and just building. So let's jump into it. We'll start with what tools you will need. You should always have a sketch of the face that you're trying to do in front of you. This is Wednesday Addams, and it's not the one I'm going to be showing you here in this video. It's just an example sketch that I have. I also have the full body sketch with me as well, just in case I need it. But it is very important and good practice to have your reference photo in front of you so that when you are working, you can keep relying on it and you don't have to make it all up in your head and figure it out on your own. All right, you are also going to need a variety of tools as per usual. I have grabbed the X-Acto/cleanup tool. I find this very helpful. An assortment of wood tools. As you go through and you work on the project, you'll find which ones work best for you on this one. Fettling knife, always good to have as a, just in case. You're gonna need a ribbon tool, preferably a smaller one, not the tiny one, but more of those mid-sized, and a needle tool. You'll also need a sponge and water. I just have a cup. You'll want a rib tool, and you will also need wedged clay. It's very important that you wedge this so your face doesn't explode. Let's get into it. So, like I said, this is not the sketch that I'm going to be using for this project, but you will want to have your sketch next to you while you're working to make sure that you can double check that you're doing everything the way you wanted it to look and you're doing it all correctly. When we are creating our face, we don't need a ton of clay to start. This is already way too much, but it's easier to wedge about a softball size amount of clay. So I went ahead and I wedged that. You're gonna get yourself a piece and you might have to just mess with it until you get the size that you want. Keep in mind that this first part of the face is going to be this portion of the face. It's going to be from the top of the head to just below the mouth. We're not adding the jaw just yet. So whatever size you make this hunk of clay, keep in mind you're going to be adding a little bit to it in the end. I'm going to form it into a ball shape. And remember, compression is great for ceramics. It'll pop any bubbles that might be in there. So I'm squeezing in as I form a ball. I'm also going to smooth the surface as I'm going so I don't have to deal with lumps and bumps later on down the line when I'm trying to do details and all this tiny, tiny work. Alrighty. So when creating the face, remember that is always good practice to start with a round piece of clay. This is going to be my face area. So we see my piece here. It's very round. It's not flat. It's kind of egg-shaped because that's the general face of a shape. But remember, we're not doing the jaw just yet, so it doesn't need to be pointy at the end. Alrighty. I've got my base. This is here. It's probably about an inch, almost an inch and a half big. And once I add that jaw, that'll add that extra little bit that I need. You usually don't want to go any bigger than 2 inches for the face in length, just as a general benchmark so that your proportions are not weird with the body. If you are someone who puts their projects on a smaller shelf, be mindful of that as well, because you're not going to want your head to be much bigger than the 1.5 inches. Your body will wind up being way too big for it proportionally. All right, as you're doing this, you may also wish to refer to your step-by-step guide that I have given you. If you haven't received that from me, come talk to me so that I can give you that paper. But the first step is to take a tool and you're going to divide this into 4 equal quadrants. I want to very lightly press in with a needle tool or some other small tool. You really don't want to use a whole blade that's going to really cut into the ceramic. I'm really just going to very lightly push into the surface because I don't want to go too deep, because you're going to get rid of this in the end. This is just going to help us to divide up the face to give our proportions. There we go. All right. The next step is to gouge eye sockets in. Let me zoom in a little bit. All right, so once we have our face divided into 4 equal quadrants, if you mess up with this, just smooth it over and do it again. 4 equal quadrants. This is the step where we're going to gouge in our eye sockets. You can use your pinky finger if you have smaller pinkies and you don't have nails, or you can use a tool like the back of a needle tool can help. I really like the back of these tools here because it gives me a more almond-shaped eye rather than just a circular round eye socket. But that's just my preference. It's up to you. The eyes should sit on the line, and the distance that you give them is going to change the features of your face, the shape of your face. So it all depends on what kind of aesthetic you're looking for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press in, or you can use a tool to scoop out, but I find pressing in tends to be a little bit easier for this portion. And I'm pressing in some eye sockets, not too far down, but not too shallow. And then I'm going to try my best to equal that on the other side. And there. Okay, so I'm going to keep adjusting the size of these pieces of clay until they fit inside the eye sockets the way I want them to. If the balls are like the size circumference that you want, but they're just not fitting, deepen those eye sockets a little bit and it will fit much better. All right, so now we have 2 eyes that fit in the sockets the way I want them. However, I wish that my sockets were a little bit deeper in, so the eyes weren't poking out quite as much. So I'm going to go in now, and actually I'm going to go ahead and take the back of that needle tool, and I'm just going to deepen the eye socket so the ball of clay has somewhere to sit further back. There we go, and I'm just gently tapping in, kind of deepen that up. Pop the eyes in, and yes, they fit just the way I want them to. Now, at this stage, this is where scoring and slipping gets a little tricky because we're working with very tiny pieces here. I am going to put some slip in the eye sockets just a little bit, and I forgot to mention that in the list of materials you'll need. You will need slip, of course. I'm going to put just the tiniest bit of slip in the eye socket. I'm going to use my needle tool to do it. The eyelids of this project are what's going to help the eyes stay in. So if you do the eyelids correctly, your eyeballs will not fall out. Stick those into the sockets. They fit in the way I want them to. Perfect. Now I can move on to step 4. Step 4 is to make my eyelids. This is where people run into problems. If you mess up on your eyelids, scrape them off and do them again. You can always do that as long as you keep your clay nice and fresh. You can always scrape it off and do it again. So I'm going to take a small piece of clay, and I mean super small, and I'm going to roll myself a thin coil. Something about this big. It depends on the shape of the eyes you are trying to make on your character. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do just a little tiny scoring along the top of the eyeball there. Same to my coil. A little bit of scoring. Increase that surface area. Tiniest bit of slip, because again, we're working with very small objects. Too much slip, and it will be hard to get your details on correctly. There we go. Slip on there. I made my coil a little bit longer than I know I'm going to need. That way I can cut it off rather than struggling to get it long enough. Now, I am going to stick where I want the inner corner of my eyelid to start and pull it around until I get to the outer corner. I'm not going to wrap it around the bottom just yet. I'm going to make a separate coil for that. The reason is it will look very odd. It won't look human. If you're going for a shape like that, you know, more power to you. But that's up to you. Now I'm going to take my finger here and I'm just pressing the coil down just a bit. And by down, I mean towards me, towards the eyeball. Because if you don't overlap your eyelid over your eyeball, it's going to look like you have a deer in headlights character who is very shocked. If that's what you want, do that. I'm going to cut off just a little bit of this excess here. Same on this end. I'm going to cut it where I want it to stop. Then I'm going to take a tool and smooth it down. And take my cleanup tool and I'm going to turn it so that I can reach it better. And I will take a cleanup tool and I will smooth the top of this eyelid down. Only the top. You don't want to touch the portion that is touching the actual eyeball itself. If you do that, that is that pitfall that you will fall into, where your eyes will look very odd, very scary, because you'll have this gouge jammed into the eyeball itself, and we don't want that. There we go. Smooth that down. I always like to say clean as you go with something this small. It's much easier if you do it that way. Grab your sponge and just give it a little wipe down with just a tiny, tiny bit of water. Really none at all. Just a damp sponge. Now you want to be careful that you don't do too much because you can blend the eyeball into the eyelid. And I have just a tiny bit of blending happening here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that needle tool and on the eyelid itself, not the eyeball, the eyelid, I'm going to give it just the tiniest, most delicate little line to divide the two. And tap it down with my finger so that it's not sharp. There we go. All right, so we have a top eyelid. Now I need to create a bottom eyelid, and don't put a gouge in your piece like I just did. This is why I say you shouldn't have long nails in ceramics. Do as I say, not as I do. Been doing this for a long time. It's easier for me to do. I'm going to take that coil and do the same exact thing I did on the top on the bottom. Some people like to do one top, other top, bottom, bottom. Some people do left eye, right eye. It does not matter how you do it. It's up to you. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to do the whole eye. A little bit of slip. A little bit of slip. Again, not too much. I'm going to take this coil. This coil is actually a little bit big, so I'm going to squeeze it down a little bit. It's a little too thick. And then I will attach it to the corners. Again, overlapping the eyeball, because that's how a person's eyelid sits. The eyelids hold your eye in place. And then I'm going to smooth down the bottom of the eyelid. Doing a very generic face here, so nothing special, nothing too particular. If your character that you are creating has a very specific type of eye, very specific type of eye shape, go ahead and change up your method here to create the shape, but you're going to use the same techniques. When you are doing the eyes, when you do your second eye, make sure that you pay attention to the shape of your first eye so that they match, unless that is a purposeful choice. Now, okay, so now I am much happier with this eye than I am with this eye. So I'm actually going to go ahead and scrape the eyelids like I told you. If you're not happy with what you're making, don't fight it. Just scoop that eye out and do it again. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going to use a cleanup tool, clean that off, and I'm going to put a new eye socket in and create a new eye. When you are rolling these coils, these very tiny ones, make sure you're rolling it on your plastic table, the black tables that you work on, and not on the wedging table. You will dry these coils out immediately. If the coil starts to dry on you, use fresh clay because you're working with really tiny pieces here. Rehydrating it is going to be really tricky. Okay. I'm much happier with the face now. I'm just going to go back in and redraw some of that guideline just on the center to help me out with the nose and the mouth and all of that jazz. I'm just going to give just a little clean here and there. And you want to be really careful when you're messing with your needle tool in the eye area. You don't want to jab anything. Okay. If you want something like a pupil, you could take a very small tool and dot yourself some pupils in there, kind of a la a Greek sculpture, something like a pen cap, or oftentimes I will even just use a paper clip. Give myself the pupil. Just gonna poke it. So it's got the pupils in there. Now, sculpture tends to look a little bit creepy when you give it pupils until it's been painted. So just keep that in mind that it's not painted yet. There we go. A little happier with that. All right. After we have created that, now it is time to move on to the nose. And I think I'm going to go with a more feminine character for this one, just because that's what I enjoy creating. When you're making your own, obviously look at your reference to see what kind of nose shape you're going to have. I make more of a button nose for this person. I'm going to start with a triangle. And what I'm going to do here is I'm pinching and pushing to create a triangular shape. I want it to be longer so that I can get the bridge of the nose in there. If you look to your packet, you'll see that. You want to have a bridge on your nose. And then you also want to create that little curved elephant tail bit. Now I am going to be creating a more button nose shape here, because that's just what I would like to do for this one. It's what I'm feeling. I'm going to, before I attach it, check it, see how it looks. I like that. I like that shape. So I'm going to go ahead and score and slip it on. And I'm only scoring the flat portion. I'm not going to score the elephant tail that we've created, or the elephant trunk, I guess I should say. Score, slip, stick. And as I stick, I'm going to take some tools and I'm going to smooth. Now I don't quite want it to go so far out. So you can always start removing clay as well. This is an adding and subtracting process. So you're going back and forth, adding and subtracting. You do not ever need to commit to the very first thing you create, right? You can always change it, manipulate it. All right, I'm going to create some nostrils here on the side because I'd like to have some on the end. So that's just a ball of clay that I'm attaching to the nose, and then I'm going to smooth it all together so it's like one piece. It doesn't hurt to look up references online of human noses or drawings of human noses so that you can see it broken down when you go to sculpt it. Drawing and sculpting go hand in hand. Not everybody who is great at sculpting is great at drawing, and not everybody who is great at drawing is great at sculpting, but there are techniques there, especially when it comes to anatomy, that we can share amongst the media types. Remember, this piece is going to get smoothed down later. So, okay. Needle tool, I'm going to put those nostrils in there. Okay. So as we said with the evolution of creating, I've made these fangs and I don't like them. So chop it off. I'm not going to be precious with my art because there's always more clay. There's always more ideas. The best advice I was ever given as an artist was don't be too precious with your work, right? You might really like it in the moment, or it might be something, it might be your favorite piece ever. That's great. Love it, appreciate it, enjoy it. Don't be too precious with it, right? That's when we put ourselves in a box and we are unable to improve or make anything new that might be interesting because, well, this worked in the past. Upper lip. You know what? I think I'm going to give this an open mouth. Okay, new idea. I've decided I would like this mouth to be open. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to open it. And give her just a little bit of an open mouth. So I'm going in. Just scoop some of that mouth out. There we go. I'm going to score where the upper lip should go. Something that a lot of people struggle with when creating and trying to make something look like it flows is not cutting things at an angle. I see a lot of people who will cut this straight. If you cut it at an angle, it helps with the flow of the piece. Even though we're smoothing this together, it's going to smooth together much nicer if it's cut at an angle. So think about that. Okay, so I have a mouth that I am much more happy with this time around. Again, you could always add Cupid bow, things like that. This is how I would like mine. Now, before I add the jaw, I'm going to add the cheekbones. And that is also going to be pieces of clay rolled into a ball. I'm going to clean my work area up a little bit. All of these scraps of clay that have started to dry out as I've worked with them, I'm going to keep those together and put them back in the good clay bin as long as they are not rock hard. Just squish those together to get them out of my way, kind of clean up the area. Helps you to think clear. I'm going to take little balls of clay. I'm going to match them up just like I did with the eyes. Make things easier on myself. There we go. Okay, so if you don't want gigantic cheekbones, don't do huge pieces. These are pretty medium-sized, I'd say. If you want smaller cheekbones, either smooth it out a lot or make them smaller to begin with. I'm going to take a tool here. Oh, I just stabbed through my nose and eye. Maybe we will keep it and create a scar. Goes through there. Maybe I'll make it go through the eyebrow as well. That'll be cool. Serendipity, right? Yeah, I'm gonna do it straight through the eyebrow. I think that'll be cool. Okay, so smoothing this down. And those cheekbones, if you feel your own cheekbones are right underneath your eye socket. I'm gonna be pushing in, pushing up. Maybe we go a little sharper with this one. Cheekbones change that face drastically. So depending on what kind of shape you choose for the cheekbones. Smoothing it down. You see that just creates a little more definition. I want to sink in this face a little bit. That's just the direction I feel like this is going in. So I'm going to make it more dramatic, maybe a little more gaunt, a little more ghostly. It is almost Halloween after all. Ooh, I like that shape. I like that sunken in shape. So I'm going to keep that. I'm going to do the same over here. And faces are not perfectly symmetrical, contrary to what some people think. So just try your best. right, I have cheekbones that I am happy with. I like this more sunken in skeletal shape. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do my jaw now, which will be created using a half moon shape. Different jaws, different shapes, obviously, more round, more square. You can have dimples, however you want to create it. But I'm going to take a chunk of clay, kind of roll it into a coily shape, tapering it at the ends so that the ends are skinnier than the middle, and then curving it into a moon shape, however you want that to look. Figure out where I want to attach the chin and start adding. So I'm going to score and slip that. A lot of pieces you can tell when they have broken off because the scoring is really, really shallow. And I might even carve this down a little bit once it's attached. I would like to attach it and see how it looks. And I'm smoothing right up to that lip there. So it's one homogeneous piece. All right, I'm very happy with what I have so far. It is brow bow time, which means it's finally time to smooth this nose piece down. First, I'm going to take a chunk of clay and create the brow bone, kind of similar to the jaw and the chin here. Squish my chin. Where you roll yourself kind of a log of clay, and we're going to score and slip it on to the top here because we have foreheads. I'm going to cut this down just a smidge, just a little too thick for what I'd like. Cut it down and round it out. The shape I'd like. Yeah, that's what I'd like. Okay, so now I'm going to score and slip it on and then smooth it all together. Not quite enough scoring on the forehead. There we go. Much better. I'm kind of emphasizing my eyelids now. That is a stylistic choice. It's up to you if you want to do that, but this is where you would smooth this trunk shape that we've created at the top of our nose. That's when you will smooth it into the brow bone. And since it has been sitting there for a while, and yours has probably been overnight, you dab just a little bit of water on there. Don't squeeze water onto it, just dab it. As you go, it's very important that you turn the head and look at it from all angles so you can really get a view of what you're doing. And if you like how it looks, take your time. Okay, so now's the point where I can add my brows. I'm going to take a little bit of clay, roll it into a little coil like we have been doing for most of this. This one's going to taper a little bit because I'd like the brows to taper. Scoring and slipping. Tiny coils require a little tiny bit of slip. Let's slip the other piece. Stick them on. And these I'm not going to smooth quite as much because I would like them to stick out more, their eyebrows. I'm going to do both before I do any texturing on them. Underneath, I'm going to smooth together. Make sure it's in the expression that I want. Eyebrows change the expression of the face very much. There we go, one eyebrow. The other. Anybody who does their eyebrows knows the phrase, eyebrows are sisters, not twins. They will look similar, but they do not need to be exact. Maybe I'll put this one up a little more, like she's asking a question, maybe. I like that. Yeah, that's fine. Just smooth it down now that it's on there. Okay, so I've got that scar that I accidentally created with my fingernail that I decided I want to keep. You don't have to keep mistakes like that, but I want to, so I'm going to have it going through there, the nose and the eyelid. And then I'm also going to follow that line and gash it through the eyebrow. Actually, let's take the fettling knife and do that. I don't like that. Like she's got like a gash through her face, and maybe I'll do a couple more scars along the face. Maybe it's like a creature attacked or something, like a tiger or something. And in fact, I can just use my actual nail to do it. Kind of leave it a little intentionally messy, not overly messy, but intentionally where that scar is. I'm gonna go through the lip a little bit with it. Do one down here. Maybe Freddy Krueger got to her or something. I don't know. Give her a little backstory, I guess. Got a little scar face going on. Love that. Now there's a reason she looks so shocked. She's being stabbed or something. Awesome. Cool. So now we have face. If you want to add texture to the brows, now is a good time to do that as well. You can kind of sketch in the little hairs. Just don't leave them messy. Clean it up. You know, we don't want that extra clay sticking off. Never looks good. This is the stage in which you would add hair, depending on what kind of hair you want to do. So I'm not going to demo that since everyone is going to be creating a different style of hair. I suggest looking at doll references, seeing what people have done. Look at human heads with actual hair and the texture that you're looking for so that you have something to work off of. Some people will do coils, some people will do thin slabs. Some people will wind up doing yarn. It is all up to you. If you do choose to do something that is not clay-based, you have to bring that in yourself. But is a great option. Anything non-clay based that you want to attach to ceramic needs to be added using E6000 or shoe glue. That will be one of the few glues that actually sticks to ceramic. It also can't go on until we have finished the glaze fire. So it'll be bisque fired, glazed, glaze fired, and then you can attach anything that is not clay. Now, if your character has ears exposed, you will take a small piece of clay, and since I'm not doing hair on this one, I will show you that. Take a small piece of clay, form it into a ball shape, squish it flat, shape it however you want those ears to look. They tend to be more bulbous at the top, smaller at the bottom. Score and slip them on. If you want them to stick out, push them out. If you want them flush against the head, flush against the head. But they do, for most people, thin out as they get closer to the face. Ooh, I just dropped it. Ah, that will happen to you. Deal with it, work with it. Don't beat yourself up over it. Her nose just got a little squished. That's okay. I'm gonna redefine those nostrils a little. Now with the inner ear, a cool trick is to do a H or a backwards H or a 5, depending on what side you're looking at. And then add just a couple extra wrinkles in there. And you'll want to go in and clean those up. This is low quality work because it's just kind of stabbed in there. I'm going to go in and clean it up, right? We're going to take our cleanup tools. We're going to take our sponge, dab it with your finger, make sure it looks like a clean, purposeful detail. That is going to level up the quality of your work tremendously, is the cleanup. You can tell the difference between a more advanced student and a lower level student based on the amount of cleaning they do to their pieces. Squeezing all the water out of it just so I can dab water on it. Okay, at this stage, take the time to clean up the face. Make sure it's the way you want it to look. I think I'm going to actually go without the ear on the side as a part of the slash effect. I think it looks like something's really wrong on this side and then everything's okay on this side. Okay, so at this step, you'll want your face to get leather hard, but not past leather hard. It should have a little bit of give to it, but not a ton. And we're going to carve out the back. That is where you will need the ribbon tool. The ribbon tool you are going to use and cradle the face very gently in your hand. You are going to scoop out the inside of the head, just like a pumpkin. Try to get the extra clay off. You can use either side, doesn't really matter. I prefer the round side, but you want to keep going until you thin it out, because the face itself is thicker than our thumb and we do not want that. Thin it out, make it nice and light and thin. I'm just checking the face every now and then to make sure I didn't move any of my features because I have not dried this piece out. If you're not sure how far to go, just keep asking. Show it to me and I will tell you. Now, before I finish this off, just because it's a craftsmanship thing, I like to go in and just clean that up. You're not going to see it, but it just makes it Better. It takes 2 seconds, and then you don't wind up with any sharp pieces sticking out. Okay. Now this we would take and put in to our body that we're going to create. And I will try my best to preserve this so that I can use it when I create the body video for you all. But that is the process. Now, when you bag this up at the end of the day, you can take a wet paper towel, water on it, squeeze it out so it's not dripping because we don't want that. You can take a wet paper towel if you're worried about your face starting to dry on you. Wrap it very gently in that wet paper towel and then put it in your plastic bag. Give that plastic bag some twists and put those twists underneath the head. Be very careful that you don't press down, squish. You can ruin the face. If you drop this, your face could get ruined very easily. So be very careful with those. And then in the next video, I will show you how to create the body, or at least a very simple body.